Okay, hello and welcome back to the Football and Down. We're here with the match reaction as Stockport County are drawn 0-0 with Charlton Athletic. Um, I asked the question in the title, is it a point gained or 2 points dropped? Because I felt like Stockport County had to win this game. I really did. I think that, sort of dropping points, drawing at Northampton on Tuesday night, I felt it was really important that County got 3 points on the board going into this game today. I knew it was going to be a tough game. I always felt it was going to be a tight game. It ended up being that. I'm surprised there were no goals in the game. To be honest, I think both teams. I think County probably had the edge. They certainly in those last sort of 10, 15 minutes looked the more likely team to score. But Charlton had the record, I think, of being able to get a goal late on in games, which sort of had me a little bit nervous when they got the free kick late on, and they might have had a corner. I think it might have just been the free kick actually. Um, but yeah, I think County probably did have the edge. But like I say, I think it was important that we won the game today, and we didn't manage to win it. So for me, it kind of does feel like 2 points dropped. So I want to get people's thoughts on that. Is that me being negative, or are the positives there that actually we've still managed to get a point with sort of not allowed a team that is basically battling us in the playoffs now to sort of gain momentum on us. Having said that, if they win their game on Tuesday, their game in hand, then they'll go ahead of us in the table. So it's going to be interesting to see how County sort of manage this next couple of weeks, sort of into the final 10 games of the season now. So it's going to be interesting to see how County manage that, because we have played more games than everyone else, and those teams behind us do have points that they can sort of gain on us. We don't have control anymore. We don't have control over it because we've not capitalised. We've not made the most of some of the games we've had. Northampton, I think, like I said, we had to win that one really. Okay, we win at Blackpool. We probably should have. You should be winning at home to Blackpool if you've got ambitions to be in the playoffs, which of course we do. This is another one which I felt okay in isolation. The result today, it's a team that's in good form. It could be viewed as a good point, but with the context that we dropped points at Cambridge recently and then dropped points at Northampton, it made this game one that really, you couldn't afford to lose. I really think we had to win it. Like I say, we've got a point from it. It's a good point if you go and beat Bolton and Wrexham in the next two games. But if you don't win those games, you look back on this and go, hang on a minute, was that a good point there? Because it's gonna be tough, isn't it, against Wrexham and Bolton. Those teams are probably better than Charlton. Certainly, Wrexham would say they're better than Charlton. So it's good. Look, I just think that it's frustrating. I think Xander 1989 said, "Frustrating game, serious lack of creative spark in the team." And I hate to mention him, Louis Barry left. Yeah, I agree with that. I think that's a fair comment. It felt like a bit of a frustrating game watching it on TV. And I probably got a different view on it from watching it on TV to when you sort of go to the games. But yeah, I think like a creative spark. What I would say to that, one thing I did notice is we played. It looks like more of a flat back four today. It looks more like a four at the back, so two full backs and players on each flank. Certainly, Rydell looked a lot better down the left. Looked a lot more natural going forward than perhaps what Ibitore offers. And I like Ibitore as a defensive fullback. I think he's a good player. He's probably better when he's got a good attacking player in front of him, like a Louis Barry. That's probably where you appreciate Ibitore more. But when you don't have that attacking wide threat on the left in front of the wing back, then Rydell looks like a very good player, and I think he did well today. So that was good to see, because I wanted to see us show a little bit more down the flanks. Ian Lee said just not the quality today. Yeah, I mean, even Benoni came on and everyone, I suppose we now expect him to have that impact off the bench, don't we, because of what his last 2 or 3 games has looked like. But even he had a chance, he couldn't quite get to it, which I think he was frustrated about. But yeah, I think that's the problem. There's not enough quality in the side to, sort of. It's really frustrating McCounty, because I think last season, I know, look, into this season now, and sort of last couple of games left of the season really. But if I look back to last season, we always seem to have a number of attacking threats. Paddy Madden, of course, was on it. He was a very reliable person who could step up when it mattered most. You had Carl Wotton, you had Tanto Laffy, Louis Barry for the first sort of couple months of the season. Nick Powell would step up from midfield. It looks like we had Odin Bailey was in great form for the majority of that season as well. It felt we carried a lot more attacking threats, and it feels like this season we've got Wotton. We'll play him. We'll start him every game. Tanto's coming to the side more in the second half of the season, but it's always the same kind of players. We don't really mix it up enough, and it seems like until recently, when sort of Anderson's come into the fold, it feels like we've got a game plan, and we generally don't really have much to sort of pivot away from that. Anderson does offer a different way of playing, but again, he's not ready to start a match for us yet. So that means it's pretty much going to be the same for the next couple of weeks, really. When is Benoni Brecky Anderson going to be ready to start for County? That's the question I'd like to know from Dave Challoner, to be honest. Not that he will necessarily know either, but I think he'll be playing. Anderson will be going to Iceland as well, and I don't mean the shop. I think it's the under-21s for the internationals in the next couple of weeks. So is he going to be playing full 90 for them? I'd say really, if he's not ready to play 90 minutes for Stockport County, then he shouldn't really be playing for Iceland's under-21s or whatever. But that's just my opinion on it. As I say, it was a frustrating watch. To be honest, I did think we were going to nick it at the end as well today. I really did. But it just wasn't to be. I'm just going to have a quick look at the league table as well now. So we are still in fourth, but like I say, Charlton are right up our backside now. A game in hand, 2 points behind us in the table. You've got to look at Huddersfield as well. They're currently drawing 0-0 at the moment in their game as the 3 o'clock kickoffs are taking place. Bolton as well, only 4 points. Of course, they're 0-0 as the games have just kicked off in the last sort of 10 minutes. So we've got to be careful. Like I say, it's going to be a tough test at Bolton next week. It's another 12:30 kickoff as well. But yeah, look, I do think we'll get the playoffs. But nothing's guaranteed. I can't remember. I've not checked the table properly, but I was looking at yesterday, and anyone from sort of like 10th to sort of 2nd could be in the playoffs come the end of the season. So it's very much up for grabs all over. No one's guaranteed a spot, and even getting into the playoffs doesn't necessarily mean you're going to get into the Championship, because you've got to go, as I say, we're going to have to face some very good sides in the playoffs as well. I mean, Wrexham could potentially still be in those playoffs if they don't get a second. They're going to be a tough opposition to go up against. Bolton, Leyton Orient, all these kind of sides, what I would say is County do generally perform better against top opposition as opposed to some of the teams in the bottom of the table. We've struggled at Cambridge, we've struggled at Northampton recently, Bristol as well. But then we can go and beat teams like Bolton quite comfortably, and Wrexham was a great performance at Edgeley Park at the beginning of the season. It was only 1-0, but the scoreline doesn't really show how the game was, because we were very much in control in that game, and it probably should have been more than just the one goal. County fan at 69 said, Charlton, one of the better sides to come to County. A point is better than none, still fourth. Yeah, and look, Charlton have been in good form. I said it in the preview, just one defeat in their last 10. And a point is better than none. And we are still fourth temporarily, but we don't have the same control now of our fate than what we could have done. If we'd gone and beaten Northampton, if we'd gone and got sort of nicked a goal late on in this game today. Like I said, this result against Charlton in isolation it's not a bad point, because it's a good we're facing a very good side, but it's on the back of losing to Cambridge 2 weeks ago, dropping points at Northampton, dropping points at Bristol. When you're not getting wins and results in those kind of games, then you have to then win the big games, because the big games, the teams that are basically around you in the table. Like I say, Charlton now, it's a better point for them today because they've got a game in hand over us, and if they win that, then they overtake us. So it's a better point for them than it is for us. I think they'll come away from it thinking, you tell you what, a point away from home against County. We got a game on Tuesday or whenever it is against Crawley, and they win that and they go ahead of us. So it's a much better point for Charlton than it is for Stockport County. There's absolutely no doubt about that. And that's kind of what I'm saying, is it does feel like 2 points dropped. County fan 69 said dropped points to improving sides. What you mean, like Northampton and Bristol and sides like that? I mean, maybe that's the case, but everyone's improving. Charlton weren't here at the beginning of the season. Even Bolton, sort of a month or so ago, I wouldn't have considered them a team that might have been in the playoffs coming in the season. It was, the table has changed. There's been a lot of teams that have kind of fallen off a little bit. I think Huddersfield have dropped off a little bit if you look at where they were at times in the season, but they're still, very much in the playoffs, or very much in with a chance of being in the playoffs themselves. So yeah, things do change, and obviously some, teams at the bottom might be improving as well because they realise the fight's on at the bottom. It's getting closer to the end of the season. But you've still got, we shouldn't have dropped points at Northampton. We shouldn't have dropped points at Bristol. I didn't see the Cambridge game, but I can only look at the table and say, really, yes, it can happen, but should you really be losing to bottom of the table? Probably not. So when you have those kind of results, then you've got to win the big games, in my opinion. So it'll be very interesting. Like I said, this isn't actually a bad point if you go and beat Wrexham and Bolton. So it's all about, we'll look back on it differently depending on the outcome over the next couple of weeks. But like I say, I think Charlton, I never really felt like Charlton were going to score, particularly in that second half. I never felt that particularly that threatened. There was a penalty call as well in the first half. I think I missed that in live time, so I saw it afterwards, a penalty shout for us. I'm not 100% sure about it, to be honest. I'd love to get people's thoughts on that one. And yeah, another one. Afternoon, 2 points dropped, in my opinion. I agree with that. That's how it feels to me. It is frustrating. I think the first comment sort of summed it up perfectly. Frustrating game, but it's been a frustrating couple of weeks as well, because whilst we have picked up the win against sort of Blackpool, it feels a little bit like we've been a lot more solid just before that. We've gone on a sort of a decent run, and then it feels like since that run sort of came to an end, it's like, okay, you win one, then you might draw one, or you lose one. It's just a little bit frustrating. On TV, it did look a stone cold nail penalty shout. I missed it in real time, so I watched it afterwards. I probably have to watch it again, to be honest. I've kind of forgotten how it looked. It's just sort of approaching the left-hand side of the penalty area, I think, and it's a bit of a shirt pull to the ground, I think it was. Look, there was shirt pulling the whole game, as normally is the case. Defensively, we did well. I think Adai did well. We weren't put under loads and loads of pressure. It didn't feel like, in terms of shots on our goal. I could be wrong. Again, I've not looked at the stats, but it felt like County in those last sort of 10-15 minutes, it felt like if there was going to be a goal, it was going to come from them. I'll have a quick look at the stats now. Yeah, just one shot on target all game for both sides. Charlton were just with 4 shots overall in total, 12 in total for Stockport County. Possession as well, more or less dominated by County with 60% of the ball, pretty much. I'm thinking that he didn't give it, thinking he wasn't going to get the ball anyway. Yeah, fair enough. Like I said, I have to watch it back. But I'm not that interested in sort of, at the end of the day, County didn't produce obviously enough to sort of kill the game anyway. So we can't rely on that sort of penalty shout and say we should have won the game because of that, because there's no saying we would have scored it anyway. Bristol Rovers beating Huddersfield, interesting, very interesting. That's certainly one to keep an eye on. That's big news, because, like I say, it's likely that Charlton could overtake us in the table. So at least if teams like Huddersfield are dropping points as well to sides like Bristol, then it at least makes County feel a little bit better, because that's exactly what we did. Today's game isn't going to lose a playoff place. Reading only drew, they are near the playoffs. It's not necessarily going to lose us the playoff positions, but like my point is that we've got some big games coming up, some tough games coming up after the next couple of next couple of weeks, and if we don't get results in them kind of games, then yeah, it'll be interesting. Apparently Northampton are beating Orient. I mean, interesting. I'm going to have a look at this. Yep, you're not wrong. You're certainly not wrong on that. Bristol 1-0 up against Huddersfield and Northampton. Yeah, both. It's funny that I was making the point about those two teams, and then they go on. They're currently winning games. Hopefully they hold on to it. Is what I would say to that. Because Northampton beating Leyton Orient is very interesting. That's more impressive than Bristol beating Huddersfield, I think, with the form. Leyton Orient have been in the last sort of probably around Christmas onwards. Got to beat the best score anyway. No, I agree with that. I agree. And look, if we go in the playoffs, we've got to beat the best, to sort of get promotion anyway. So I do agree with that. And that's why, like I say, if we go and beat Bolton and Wrexham after this, we can look back on this game and go, that was a solid point. But if you don't go and win those games, you'll look at that and go, you were at home because the other two games are away, and you didn't win then. And like I say, these next three games, this and the next two included, this sort of stack of three games, that was always going to be a defining moment in the season for County. How did they come through that? Did they come through that unscathed? I think if we come through this unscathed, I think we'll get the playoffs. But I think it's a big moment in the season, these next couple of games now. Town are really on the slide. Plenty of my Town supporting mates very unhappy with Duff. Interesting. Look, things can change very quickly as well, can't they, in football? That, everyone can be on one side with a manager behind them, and then suddenly a couple of bad results, and the mood can be very different. And it's like Benoni Brocky Anderson as well. This sort of hype and excitement around him now, that wasn't there in this. Look, it was there when we signed him, but there's an expectation now he'll come off the bench and score a goal because he's done it in 2 games in a row. Things can change very quickly. He's become like a sort of hero within 2 games. On the flip side, I'm delighted with how County are doing this year. Yeah, I think we're grinding out results. I don't think the football's as good as it was last season, but I think we're sort of churning out results. I'd like to see us start to play a little bit better in an ideal world, but at the moment we generally are getting the results, so I think that's the most important thing. Watts was unlucky hitting the bar, and keeper saved another one of his to keep him in the game. Yeah, I saw that one. Was it just once the second half had started? Early in the second half, I think it was. Yeah, he hit the bar, and I thought, he was unlucky with that. I really wanted him to score the goal because he's obviously not had that many goals of late. I think it would have been his first in. It would have been his first goal since Leyton Orient, and before that, I think it was in November. So he has been. It has been goal dry for him this season. But I mean, that's not really his game, is it? As such, that even people that highly rate Wootton wouldn't say he's a goal scorer. That he's more of a player that can play in other players, maybe sort of play in goal scorers. But like I say, at the moment we don't really have that kind of player for Wootton to play into. When we had Barry, it sort of made sense because he could sort of get on the ball, play Barry in, and that works wonders for us in the first half of the season. But I think since Barry's left, I don't think he's performed as well. But yeah, I expect us to finish a safe top half this year. I do think going up this year might be a step up too quick, but boy, would I love to stuff Wrexham in the playoff final. Well, I think that would be very interesting if we beat them in the playoff final. Wrexham in the playoff final, it's one of those where I think if you lose it, you'd rather not go to Wembley in the first place. I said just outside the playoffs. I think I said 7th if I look back on it. So it's interesting, isn't it, that we could end up in that position yet as well. So as for if it's a step up too quick, I'm not sure. I'm not sure if it's a step up too quick because I think we've got a plan for being in the Championship next season. I think we've got a plan for being in League One next season. I think we've got players which are capable of performing in the Championship. My worry is that if we don't go up, that we could lose some players. I'm thinking about Ethan Pye and Lewis Bate. They could potentially move on if we don't go up this season. The manager as well. I think he's about to finish his pro licence, which would make him available to manage a Premier League side. So I think now top Championship sides would start to look at him, knowing that he's actually capable of managing in the Premier League if he was to take him up, because he's got that pro licence now. So I am a little bit concerned about, if we don't go up, could that sort of result in Chalna moving on, Pye moving on, and also Lewis Bate moving on? And if we were to lose those three this summer, that would be a huge shot on the football club. So as much as I think maybe it could be a step up too quick, I almost feel like if we don't go up this season, we could struggle as well. So there's two ways of looking at it, but I do respect and understand where people are coming from about going up too soon, because if you're not set up for it, it can go horrific. I mean, look at Carlisle; they're literally the perfect example of that in recent years. Nick Ten's saying chances at a premium in today's game, and County failed to convert. I'll have to see the chances again, but live I thought Wootton should have converted instead of hitting it straight at the keeper. Looking at it on TV, it was unfortunate if he'd somehow the one that hit the bar. But yeah, I mean, again, he's not a goal scorer, is he? I think we've got to sort of get used to that, or we've become used to that. It's the first time I've seen County this season actually match a physical side. I thought we were aggressive. Yeah, I think we sort of got involved in the dark arts sort of a little bit more as well. Like, we were happy to sort of scrap a little bit. There were quite a couple of times you see it more on TV. I don't know if maybe we've been doing that all season, but I noticed it more watching it on TV. Is that there's almost little scraps off the ball, and it's not just Wootton. It's, Ethan Pye was having a bit of a scrap with their defenders and stuff like that off the ball, and I think that's. I think we are starting to try and step up a little bit more physically in games. We did get stuck in, particularly those sort of like last sort of 5-10 minutes of normal time as well. It became very scrappy, challenges flying in, but the ref just played on. I thought that was brilliant. I loved that. Peterborough 1 up against Wickham. Jesus, these results then seem to all be going in our favour today. They weren't on Tuesday night, that's for sure. Pye and Bate likely to be gone. To be fair, both have been really consistent this season. I think if we go up to Championship, I think we keep hold of them. I think if we don't go up, particularly Lewis Bate could end up moving on. I think Ethan Pye might be a little bit more willing to stay a little bit longer, because the affinity he probably has with the club, sort of coming through the system at the club, being a local player, it might buy us more time with him. Lewis Bate, he's got the captain's armband. Of course, he came in only last season, but only this season. But it's a step up for him, isn't it? It's a stepping stone move for him to come to County. An opportunity to get game time and move up the ladder. So I don't think he's looking at it in the same way as maybe an Ethan Pye might look at it. But obviously he's got undoubted ability. He's still a young player, so he's very much capable of playing at a higher level. And obviously, if those offers come to the table, it's going to be hard for him to say no, irrespective of how he feels towards the club. Dave Channel would be a massive, massive loss, more so than Pye and Bate, in my opinion. Yes, they have been steady, but a good manager can drag you over that line. Fergie in his final season, for example. I think that's a really good point. I think Pye and Bate are really important for us, particularly. I suppose I was going to say particularly Ethan Pye. Who is more important for us this season, Ethan Pye or Lewis Bate? For me, Ethan Pye just edges it, because it's a left-footed centre-back. I think that we saw in the game against Cambridge how much we missed having having him in the team. You almost can't. You can't replace that. You can't make you can't sort of make up for that kind of role by putting a right footer there. It just doesn't work. I think Lewis Bate, as good as he is, you can replace him with Norwood. So I think probably Ethan Pye is the most important player for us actually at this point in time. But I think you're right about a good manager. Without Dave Challoner, Ethan Pye wouldn't be getting the minutes. Well, he might not necessarily be getting the minutes that he's had. He might not necessarily become the player he's become. It's part of Dave Challoner and his coaching team has allowed Ethan Pye to sort of flourish in this side. So I think from that sort of aspect of it, and obviously as for Lewis Bate, well, Dave Challoner and his recruitment team brought him in as well. So I think I think Dave Challoner would be a huge, huge loss. And I mean, we're talking about Ethan Pye potentially going into the Premier League one day as a player. Apparently, there's interest from Arsenal and Tottenham, but Dave Challoner, could easily end up managing in the Premier League one day. And I'm not saying he's going to manage at the top level, but I could definitely see him go into that sort of level in the future. And again, a bit like Ethan Pye, if there's an offer on the table and County don't go up this season, it'd be hard for Dave Challen to sort of say no to an opportunity somewhere else. How Ethan Pye hasn't been awarded man of the match yet is crazy. He's brilliant and goes unnoticed. It's because he's a centre back though, isn't it? Very rarely do they get the sort of credit that they deserve. I think he's been brilliant, and I think going into this season, I think Horsfall was clear our best centre back. And obviously he's been out for a couple of months as well now. But even before that point, I think this season Ethan Pye is sort of he's almost overtaken Horsfall in my opinion of being our best centre back. So, and obviously he's younger as well, and he's a bit more of a how do you put it? He's a better player. He's a more smooth player to watch. He's a bit more how do you put it? He's a bit more of a slick player, isn't he? Because he's a ball player. How you think? Yeah. The bonus was Corey coming off his line for a couple. Yeah, I guess so. Agreed. He has been a rock. Definitely 8 out of 10 every game. 100% agree with that one. Dave Chalmers would be a massive loss at this stage as we are still building the team. Yeah, I don't think he is going to go, but I just think that if we don't go up and then let's say a big championship team comes in like a Middlesbrough or someone, I could see him going. Although I suppose he did leave that part of the country to come back to the Northwest in the first place, so maybe not. Hills got it today, to be fair. Yeah, I thought Hills was all right again today. I think he struggled at Blackpool last week, but I thought he did well today from what I saw. I could see Dave Chalmers managing much higher. He knows his stuff, and his interviews are fantastic to listen to. Yeah, you can definitely tell he's got the sort of media training behind him, and the way that he handles the interviews he gets. The one thing I would say is part of managing a sort of higher club with more media sort of pressure, I suppose, more interviews. It's not just with County, you've basically got the one interview each week from sort of the in-house club media, whereas I think managing at a higher level, you've got press conferences, there's more media interest. So as good as he seems in interviews, I'm not saying it's easy, but it's easier to give a good interview when you're being asked questions by someone that, let's say, works for the club or is close to the club. It's a lot more difficult to handle journalists asking questions and the media in general when it's different people each week and maybe you don't have that relationship with them. That's what I would say. But yeah, he does speak very well. We need to sign Hills on a permanent move. It'd be very interesting to see if I'm not sure if the option's there. I mean, I've been surprised by his impacts at the club, to be fair, because when we first brought him in on deadline day, I thought he was going to be one that, a bit like sort of Reece Bennett or someone, he might play maybe the odd game here and there, and that kind of be that. But he's come in and actually really stepped up and been an important player for us, and that kind of tells me it wasn't a panic purchase, or panic loan like it felt like at the time. And they said at the time they'd been looking at him all season, and I just felt, well, they often say that anyway. They very rarely, bring in a player and don't say that they've been looking at him for years, but. You can definitely tell that there's been a lot of work put into that deal, and I can see why they wanted him. And obviously, he wasn't just there to make up the numbers, which has surprised me. Hills was really good, and since he joined us, sign him at all costs. Well, I mean, would you rather keep Ethan Pye or sign Brad Hills? Because I don't think the money will be there to sign Brad Hills. He's at Norwich. I don't know quite how well Norwich are doing in the Championship at the moment, but they'll be under pressure, no real pressure to sell. And if he's capable of playing for County, then they might look at it and go, well, he's capable of playing for us. And therefore, I think they want a lot of money for us to take him off their hands. Fair point with John and Liam as the interviewer. It's someone who's used to stick someone a bit more aggressive in his face. Who knows? That's what I'm saying, yeah. And it's not a slight, it's not a dig against them. It's just, or even Dave Chalmers, but it's just sort of when it's people you're more comfortable. And let's say someone asks a question, he's not going to take it the wrong way because he knows how they mean it. Whereas if it's someone he doesn't know, he might take it the wrong way. How does he react to that sort of thing? All these little different things which will come with managing not necessarily a bigger club. If County went up to Championship or the Premier League, there'd be more media interest in them as well. But obviously, if he goes to a Leeds or somewhere like that, then there's going to be a lot more media interest, and it'll be interesting to see how he would handle that, and whether or not he would still be as impressive as he is in interviews. Then again, he has done podcasts and he has done interviews for like BBC Manchester and that, and he still seems to be just as good at handling it. Keep pie, yeah, I think that's the thing, isn't it? He reminds me of Mike Flynn, Brad Hills. I mean that's quite the comparison, isn't it? Before my time, but I'm aware of his status at the club. Flynn in his day was amazing. Glad to see Corey come claim some crosses today, especially one at the end. Does need to be quicker when he has the ball at his feet, though. In fact, you've just reminded me. We're talking about how good Brad Hills was. There was a moment where I don't know if anyone remembers. Corey Adai sort of went to claim the ball, and sort of Brad Hills just got in front of him, and it was a bit of a sort of miscommunication moment. But luckily, it didn't impact us too much. But yeah, I noticed that because I noticed he really wanted to come and claim the ball a lot more today, Adai, and like I say, did in that moment, but for whatever reason, Brad Hills maybe didn't get the shout or whatever. Like I say, miscommunication. He just seemed to come and take it himself, and luckily it didn't sort of end up being a disaster. We've seen it happen at times, haven't we, where goalkeeper comes to claim it, the centre back goes at the same time. They almost end up bundling into one another, and loose ball, and it can end up in the opposition scoring. So. I think both of them were on it defensively. See, that's what I'm saying. Defensively, we were good. The keeper was strong. I thought the defence was good. Charlton didn't really threaten us that much in the game. It's just we didn't seem to have that creative edge to us. I noticed that me and my lad were rather worried about that mess up. Yeah, like I say, it can get very messy when those kind of things happen. Luckily, we didn't have anything to worry about. But yeah, it is sort of frustrating that we do seem to lack that sort of creative aspect of the game. Defensively, I think we've been solid most of the season. It's been more sort of that midfield to attack. How do we get the ball into the final third? How do we look more threatening in front of goal? That seems to be something we've really struggled with this season. And as surprising as it might sound, I'm sort of earmarking the arrival or the comeback, I suppose, of Nick Powell into the side as he could be the spark. He could offer that little bit that we've been missing in the final third, if and when he's back available. I'd like to see him come in because he's a very creative player in the midfield. I'd like to see what he can do. Final third lets us down, especially final ball, 100%. We just don't seem to have it in us the same as last season. I remember last season we'd be camped right outside the opposition's box, and we'd be playing it carefully, probing bit by bit. And then we'd eventually get that killer pass and we'd score from it, and we were very clinical last season. We don't seem to play quite with that same edge this season. And I think also as well the intensity hasn't been there in games. Whether or not that's down to the amount of injuries we sort of picked up last season, but we don't seem to be pressing with the same sort of intensity as we did last season. We seem to play a different style. It doesn't look like the same team, and obviously different players. We've lost some players have come in, but we don't seem to be as good as we were last season in a lot of ways. Where am I at with these comments? Corey's getting better. Glad people are laying off the stick. Yeah, 100% agree with that one. We do have to remember we are a League One, not Premiership. Players' mistakes happen a lot more. No one is perfect. I agree with that. I mean, look, if you had a flawless player playing in League One, they wouldn't be playing for League One much longer, would they? They'd be in the Championship. It's like what people say about Wootton, and I do agree with this point, even though I've been sort of critical of Wootton at times. But if he had, 15 assists and 20 goals, he wouldn't be playing for County in League One, would he? He'd be in the Premier League. So I do get that. We sort of have to accept that we're at this level, and therefore there are going to be how do you put it, issues with people's parts of the game. It's not going to be a perfect player, but otherwise he wouldn't be playing in League One. Delighted to see Macca start. We've missed him. Once back fully, he'll be great again down the wing. It surprised me with Southern Wales that he started the game. we seem to have this where a player sort of misses out, or he's not even in the match day squad, and then suddenly he comes straight back into the team. Happened with Fevrier at Blackpool. No idea what's happened to him since either. I love Woods, does much more for the team than he gets credit for. I think he gets a lot of credit by a lot of people. But yeah, I just think maybe since Louis Barry's left as well, I haven't quite seen him be as a sort of as effective, and obviously he's not a great finisher, which is a problem when you're in front of goal and you're missing some chances, which really as a centre forward you should really be scoring. That's where people get frustrated. I think most people sort of acknowledge what he does off the ball and everything, and that is appreciated. But at the same time, we can also be critical when maybe he doesn't score as many as he could do. That's not saying he should score 15, 20 goals a season, but there are some chances where you think in games probably should have scored that, and if he does, maybe he gets sort of 10, 15 goals a season. We're not asking for 25 or 30, but he does miss some sort of easier chances sometimes. Easy for me to say that at home, I know, but that's just my opinion. Bolton winning again, going to be a tough test next week. It really is. I mean, which game's going to be a tougher game, Wrexham or Bolton? Again, it's such a sort of season-defining point in these next couple of weeks, and it's going to be very interesting to see how it sort of pans out. I mean, I'll be doing the same thing as well next Saturday because I wasn't able to get a ticket for Bolton, so I will be watching it on TV, and we will be doing this sort of live match reaction afterwards as well, where everyone can sort of get involved. And if anyone wants to come and speak for a couple of minutes as well, as sort of a call in as well, that'd be great. As I say, if you do want to get involved in that as well, just sort of message me on Twitter. The links are in the description below. So yeah, I think in my opinion it is probably 2 points dropped, but at least it is a point, and it is better than none. Like I say, it's gonna be a tough sort of match next week against Bolton. We're gonna have to wait and see how it pans out as well midweek with the games taking place as well. All games are tough at this stage of the season if you're near the top. Well, they're all tough if you're near the bottom as well, I suppose. But yeah, I do agree with that. Like I say, we don't know how it's going to pan out midweek with the results elsewhere, so we'll have to keep an eye on that. But yeah, thanks for everyone for joining and tuning in, getting your thoughts in. It's been great. We will be doing the match preview ahead of the game at Bolton next Saturday. Like I say, we will be doing this as well post-match at 3 o'clock next Saturday as well. If anyone wants to get involved again. And yeah, I just want to say a big thanks to everyone. Like I say, disappointed we couldn't get the win, but like County Fan 669 said, a point is better than none. So yeah, big thanks to everyone. We'll be going live again next week. Preview, like I said, should be Thursday, hopefully, fingers crossed. Not going to the game next week, but I might be going to the game at Wrexham the week after, so hopefully the vlogs will be back in a couple of weeks as well. So big thanks to everyone. Like I say, thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you guys in the next one.